Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're playing the Alaska, finally taking a look at one of the best ships in the game. Battle cruiser here, but has utility like a lot of the American cruisers do. Having a radar is rather unique to battle cruisers. We don't often see that. Things like Aegir, Siegfried, even things like Kronstadt. Usually we're not getting that utility, but here we are. And combining that with some pretty consistent 305mm main guns. Your armor is not battleship armor, but it's much better than cruiser armor, allowing you to play a little bit more aggressive, assuming you don't just walk out broadside to an Awami. I'm not sure why I did that to start things off, but don't you worry, this is going to be one of my best games I've ever had in this ship. And this is really what stands out when playing Alaska, is you still have that battle cruiser firepower. On a flank, it feels a lot like a battleship, able to punish cruisers in particular, but even enemy battleships have to be wary of Alaska guns. Here, back turret, well, is it going to be back turret, best turret? We shall see. Playing a build here, including Outnumbered, and yes, of course, back turret is always best turret. Outnumbered giving us dispersion buffs anytime we are outnumbered on our flank, which I've been loving ever since that Puerto Rico video. Really excellent skill for battle cruisers. My main complaint, of course, is a little bit of the inconsistency of battleship guns creeps in here. And that is certainly still the case most of the time. But overall, Alaska guns are extremely satisfying. The HE here has a decent enough pen at 51mm and fire chance. They have solid alpha damage too, but the bread and butter of Alaska is going to be the armor piercing here. 305mm guns with the Moyne pen angles. It is filthy what this ship is capable of doing to enemy cruisers. But even those battleships, we want to find those flanking shots, not just for Outnumbered, but in general, finding broadsides is where Alaska is going to be at its best. A lot of time when playing a battle cruiser, though, you don't have that radar utility. Things like the Marseille line, things like the premiums, Aegir, Siegfried, Kronstadt, all these ships have solid firepower on a flank, but they don't bring the utility of a lot of cruisers. And having that radar utility is so nice for contesting and winning flanks. It is incredible the value that Alaska brings. Having this pseudo battleship style guns, at least against cruisers, it feels like that, is really nice in a cruiser slot. Of course, we don't take up that battleship slot, so we should have a relatively tanky teammate to take the focus fire for us. Alaska armor is good, but it's not going to hold up under immense pressure from enemy teams. You need to be a little bit more careful, but it's not nearly as vulnerable as the vast majority of cruisers are these days, which I really do enjoy. It allows us to play a little bit more aggressive, and more importantly, take a little more initiative in these flanks. It's incredible in things like ranked, of course, cap contesting, dealing with enemy DDs. It's great for that, spotting them out with this long duration radar. Cruisers, I mean, it's really tough to fight in Alaska when you're playing a cruiser. And battleships are going to find that you have a lot of HP to go through when dealing with an Alaska, as well as this ship having a waterline or almost below waterline citadel that is quite hard to hit. So Alaska is going to survive quite a long time against enemy battleships as well. So a really fun playstyle here if you're okay with a little bit of inconsistency on those main guns. Highly recommend you take Outnumbered though if you're like me and don't really enjoy battle cruiser guns a lot of the time. I will say it makes a massive difference and has really transformed battle cruisers for me in particular. It's a class that I haven't really enjoyed in the past, even though I know they're very good. I really am enjoying them these days. Alaska, though, is going to be around that $75 mark with this Black Friday sale, at least US dollars. So not a cheap ship. Value, of course, hard to judge, and it's going to be up to you guys. Tier 9 here, though, given that it comes around once a year, it seems. If you're not going to get it this year, it should be back for next Black Friday. But this is your opportunity to actually get this ship. Highly recommended over something like Puerto Rico, certainly. Puerto Rico B in this one, only in that insane bundle for $400. To get a similar playstyle, though, you could look at Rhode Island B. But again, that one is even more considering it is a tier 10. I think Alaska's a solid pickup. Unfortunately, it has some of the worst matchmaker these days. The strength of Alaska is enough that you're going to have great experiences into tier 10 games. Even into the odd super ship game, you can perform rather well. That's just how strong this ship is at tier 9. I mean, the tier 9 down tiers when you're facing tier 7s, it's kind of ridiculous how good this ship is. You're not going to get it very often, but wow, when you do, it is crazy powerful. I think Alaska is a very solid ship in this game and a unique playstyle. Battle cruiser, but you retain the utility of a lot of the mainline cruisers here on the American side is really, really unique. And for a lot of people, this is going to be one of the best premiums to play in the game. You get a faster reload than battleships with similar punching power into cruisers. We're seeing here that it's not quite as good into the broadside battleship there, unfortunately. You got to get a little bit closer to get that real heavy hitting damage into battleships a lot of the time. At longer ranges here, it's going to be a little hard to lead these shells. American shell arcs on cruisers, not the best, of course, and these 305s are no different. But that plunging fire, improved pen angles, even an angled knees back here is going to take mostly full pens and over pens. Notice we didn't even bounce there. It's really, really powerful to have this kind of AP. You don't have the fast reload like you do on a Des Moines, but at least for the most part, your AP salvos are going to count thanks to these improved pen angles. And of course, I really should be comparing this ship to Puerto Rico, as that is basically the tier 10 equivalent. And I find myself feeling the same about these two ships and their playstyle and how much damage they actually deal a lot of the time, thanks to the difference in dispersion. Yeah, Puerto Rico, it gets a whole nother turret. You would think that means a massive jump in the damage output of the ship. However, it has battleship dispersion. Very rare for a battle cruiser to actually get full battleship dispersion, which is not a good thing. Alaska here having battle cruiser dispersion results in much more consistent salvos. As always, it's about how many shells you actually hit on the enemy, not how many shells you fire. So the number of hits per salvo feels pretty similar, I gotta say. And as for the armor here, relatively similar between these two ships, able to stand up to battleships at closer ranges. Here getting a lot of overpens from this poor Carcillo, and some very nice damage. Unfortunate we didn't get the dev strike on that broadside Drake, but now that we have Outnumbered active, just look at how much tighter the dispersion is going to be on this salvo. Really, you need to be running Outnumbered if you're like me and you're not enjoying battle cruiser dispersion a lot of the time here. It's going to be 2 citadels into him. Not quite enough to finish him off, but we have fast enough reload that we're going to catch him again. That is something that a lot of battleships can't do. And this is the other side of that coin, where battle cruisers to me in the past felt like it was combining some of the weaknesses of battleships and cruisers. Weaker armor can't hold up to battleships like a battleship armor would, and bringing the inconsistency of battleship main guns and their dispersion. That's kind of why I didn't enjoy these battle cruisers in the past. Outnumber has helped with that a lot, but the other way of looking at it is you gain the punchiness of battleship shells into cruisers especially, but you don't have to wait nearly as long for that reload like you would on a battleship. And if you're feeling like that, you're gonna love this. I mean, Halsey Confed also is gonna help us out a lot, and here we go. At closer ranges, finally we get to see some citadels into something like a Missouri, these battleships. Improved pen angle is gonna help out a lot here. Not another citadel, unfortunately, and only 10k per salvo here. Would have been nice to get some of those citadels a little bit more, but still, 243 into a game like this one. Our entire AB flank absolutely collapsed, and we had to take the initiative, really, to get the C flank opened up here. So a very, very good showing out of Alaska. That is how strong this ship is. Can turn an entire blowout into a somewhat closer game. A lot of the time, we want to push up to islands like this one, where we can raid our cap zones. And that can be a big struggle when you're playing a cruiser that doesn't have the best armor. You get spotted around these islands sometimes, the overmatched salvos come in. I'm sure you've experienced that before. But Alaska can hold up to that. And having this radar means that unlike other battle cruisers, well, we just can spot this GQ Johnny out. Highly recommend having gun feeder, as we want the AP a lot of the time, but the HE is still very, very good and well worth using here. So this destroyer is overpushed and overcommitted. I waited, notice, with my radar until I was reloaded. If you're in a div and you can rely on your teammates, sometimes it's worth using the radar right away. But when I have a slower reload like this, certainly a lot slower than something like a Des Moines or a light cruiser, I want to wait until I'm loaded again, because I want to maximize my number of salvos into the radar destroyer. maybe this is incorrect, but I don't always trust my teammates, okay? I'm sorry, but I don't always trust my random teammates, so I want to guarantee as much value as I can out of my radar. Assuming, though, that destroyer stays within the radar duration for the whole time. Sometimes that's just not going to happen. Like here, the Shima right on the edge of range, so no problem with using it earlier on. It allows us to also spot this submarine, something that a lot of other battle cruisers wouldn't be able to do. If we were in a Siegfried like our teammate here, while this submarine and Shima would be able to go wild on our flank here. Fortunately, that gets the Bilal, and then of course we're going to push this Shimakaze away too. Really amazing utility here. I need to stress this. Battle cruisers, one of their weaknesses is that they don't offer the utility of a cruiser a lot of the time. And Alaska fixes that weakness. Pushing up aggressively in this one, yeah, it's the tier 7 game. It's not going to happen often, but when it does, I mean, you're basically just another battleship. You have the armor of these tier 7 battleships, but better, right? 27 bow stern, you get the 38mm deck armor. Allows you to stand up to a lot of these battleships. We even have similar HP pool to like that Colorado in the background there. So you're just another battleship, except you bring a radar, faster reload, more consistent main guns. You're so strong that you need to be applying that pressure. Unfortunately, though, one of the problems with Alaska is when you push up to these islands, you're a pretty easy target for carriers and airstrikes. The AA is not very good, unfortunately. You don't have actually that much flak, and the continuous DPS is kind of weak, I would say, at least nowhere near enough to support this aggressive play style in some carrier focus. So make sure you're in a position to either stay undetected so those airstrikes aren't coming for you, or you just need to be able to maneuver is really what it comes down to here. I'm not running defensive AA, okay? I could be running D-Fire, but that's still not going to be enough. You're reliant on a lot of RNG there. Hydro is very useful for pushing up, as it is still quite a large ship. You got to consider it's an 850 meter turning circle radius with a 13-second rudder shift. And yeah, I think we overmatch Helena there. These down tiers are ridiculous, by the way. It is insane how much this ship can do in these down tiers. But maneuverability-wise, it certainly is a little bit clunky relative to a lot of cruisers, so we got to keep that in mind here. As well as the HP pool being 60k is very nice. Your concealment is just okay at 12.1 kilometers. It's very good still, but you're not going to get into these positions very easily. You should be getting spotted before you're getting to some of these pushed up island positions. So you got to be a little bit careful of that as well. Your radar duration and range being a 10-kilometer radar is great, 35-second duration. But people are going to know where you are a lot of the time. So you're not going to be surprising people with radars nearly as much as you would in, say, a Worcester or a Des Moines, anything like that. You can push up a little bit easier with those. But those ships, of course, don't have these insanely large caliber main guns for a cruiser, as well as this healing and the armor profile here. You just survive a lot more salvos than you would in a Des Moines, and certainly into a Worcester. So for me personally, I would still probably pick Massachusetts over this ship if I had to pick one of these rare ships to get. But I gotta say, Alaska, playing it again here with Outnumbered in particular, it was really fun, okay? Having the utility that battleships just simply don't have is so nice for when your team decides to not do a whole lot on your flank. You're a bit of a one-man army here, able to deal with most of the other surface ship classes yourself. You're not going to sustain a lot of focus fire, but you can, if you pick your timing right to push, do extremely well. Cruisers are just going to melt before you a lot of the time, honestly, and destroyers, they got to respect that radar. And I think that's really important. This is a bit of a do-it-all ship on a flank. It's something that doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, and because of that, you can carry a lot of games for your team. It's always going to feel like you can do something. If you get a lot of broadsides on your flank, you're going to be laughing because the AP slaps so hard. If people angle to you, your HE is going to do solid damage, decent pen, solid fire chance as well. If you have to deal with destroyers, that's no problem. You got a radar. If you got to deal with a bunch of battleships, you can play that behind an island farming cruiser role, or even longer range angled kited cruiser role relatively well. It's a ship that can play in the vast majority of games. 19 kilometers of range, haven't mentioned it yet, but it's more range than even Puerto Rico gets at tier 10. It's more than enough range to be usable in most of the matches you're going to find yourself in. I can see this being a comfort ship if you're someone who is not as frustrated by dispersion like I am. And if you are like me in that regard, just slap Outnumbered on it, try to find yourself on a flank, and you're going to notice that dispersion problem goes away. Alaska is an excellent pickup, even in 2025. Of course, it was way more powerful back when it was fully released so long ago, but it's still a really, really good ship to get. And if you're playing anything like ranked modes when there's tier 9s, Alaska is easily one of the best picks for that. The flexibility that this ship brings is incredible. I can see why that it was removed back in the day, and I'm glad it's still available in these Black Friday sales. And for 75 US dollars, it's not cheap. But what you're getting here is one of the more unique playstyles, and a lot of the comparable ships to this one are also either in this Black Friday sale, like Rhode Island B or Puerto Rico B, and those are going to be a lot more. So I've certainly sung Alaska's praises at this point, but it is worth mentioning that Tier 9 is the worst tier for Matchmaker, all right? I do think this is a solid ship, but you're buying into, if you play random battles, one of the worst tiers at the moment. The constant up tiers, super ship games, really frustrating. Surprised I didn't get Citadels in on that battleship at these close ranges. It's more of a cruiser killer than a battleship killer a lot of the time. You got to get really close for those battleship salvos, unfortunately. I think this ship also does struggle a little bit too much to focus fire. If you're someone who's trying to play aggressive like I have been in these videos here, just know that it's even harder than battleships to push up, because you will die sooner than a battleship would in these closer range brawling situations. You got to be a little bit more careful still. So if you struggle with that, you might find it a little hard to push up and get some good value out of this ship, because that shell velocity is a little hard to use at those longer ranges too. Back in port now, let's talk a little bit about the build and the armor here. Being a battle cruiser, it is tankier than cruisers. However, we do have some weaknesses to overmatch. 27 here, 28 only on the upper belt, so a lot of shells will still get through that at closer range. So you got to be a little careful of that. Fortunately, your belt armor is quite solid, but if battleships aim up a little bit, there's a lot of spots that can just guarantee full pens through overmatching into this. At range, though, fortunately, there will be some bounces here with 36 millimeter deck armor. I was actually wrong earlier. I don't know why I thought 38. 36 on this one only. As for your Citadel here, you can see that, yeah, waterline, a little below waterline, that kind of thing. Close range, it's almost impossible to Citadel these things. I have some objections to this as far as a game design perspective. I think it's silly that you can just go broadside at close range and take 0. It's ridiculous to me in any ship. Really annoying. They lowered the American battleship Citadel so long ago. It's silly to me. Like, let us just take damage when we're broadside. When we're angled, let us take less damage. Reduce overmatch, raise Citadels. I've said this a million times, they're never going to do it, but it is an annoyance to me. So it is worth mentioning, though, that it's better than cruiser armor, but not battleship level armor here. Your firing angles are actually 33 degrees forward, 37 degrees backwards, so you're a little bit vulnerable, but still reasonably well angled. Decent conceal. Turning radius is not great. Rudder shift feels a little sluggish at times, but it's a little better than battleship, a little worse than cruisers. Pretty common for battle cruisers. Of course, here's the build that I was running. Swapping between damage control mod and propulsion mod. I was trying both a little bit here, as the fire duration is quite long. That's another weakness of battle cruisers. You don't get some of the battleship skills that keep you alive longer, like fire prevention. Would love to see fire prevention on cruiser skills. It would be so helpful for these battle cruisers. Unfortunately, we don't get it. However, what we do get are some pretty incredible cruiser skills that massively buff our ship's capabilities. Outnumbered, of course. Top grade gunner, of course. These are very, very strong on cruisers, so I've been trying to take them as much as I can. Unfortunately, here we give up survivability expert and heavy AP. So it's really hard to decide what I want to take on this ship, but I really want conceal to get into more aggressive positions. I really want outnumbered, and I really want top grade. This is what I ended up running towards the end of my play session, but I did try some without top grade, taking survivability expert, things like that. Really want gun feeder, really would love grease the gears as well. Turret's a little slow, 34.5 seconds, feels like a bit of a battleship in that regard, but we need gun feeder. The AP is incredible, the HE is very good consistency when people are angled or into destroyers, for example, so we want to use both of those, of course. It's a very strong ship. It's very expensive, these tier 9s, but at least it's a direct purchase. I am very happy to see that. Black Friday sales, as of course, is one of the best times to directly purchase ships, and we get these 4 ships that are usually not available as well. So really happy to take a look at Alaska again today, and I'm glad I had such a good time in it. Kind of warming up to battle cruisers, I guess. You guys have been forcing me to play them so much in Ship Request series and 6 god ships. Outnumbered is a pretty good pickup, I gotta say. I've been enjoying that. But let me know what you think about the Alaska in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.